So now we will have a last talk of this session from Minseok from Korea University. It's about the return of CFA, context-sensitive analysis. Which the paper shows that it can be superior to object sensitivity for object-oriented programming. Go ahead.
Thank you for the introduction. Hi, I'm Minseok Jeon from Korea University. In this talk, I'm going to present our paper. In this paper, we challenge it to a commonly accepted knowledge. The title of our paper is Return of CFA. Call sensitivity can be superior to object sensitivity, even for object-oriented programs. This work is called with Hakjoo. In this talk, I will use one call sensitivity and one object sensitivity for simplicity. Call sensitivity and object sensitivity are two major camps in static analysis for precisely analyzed method calls. Call sensitivity is an elder context born about 40 years ago. It considers where to separate method calls. For example, if a method Goo is called under two different call sites, it separates the two method calls with the call site. On the other hand, object sensitivity is a relatively new one, appeared in 2002. It considers what to separate method calls. For example, if a method Goo is called under two different receiver objects, object sensitivity separates the two method calls with the receiver object. Theoretically, call sensitivity and object sensitivity are incomparable, which means they have their own limitation and strength. This example shows the limitation of call sensitivity and the strength of object sensitivity. In this example, ID is an identity function, and ID1 is also an identity function implemented with ID. The right one shows the call graph of one call sensitivity. In call graph, the edges present the call site, and the nodes present methods and their context. For example, this call graph presents that main method invoke ID1 at two call sites 9 and 10, and their contexts are 9 and 10. The limitation of call sensitivity is nested method calls. In this example, the method ID is called under one call site. The two nested method calls are merged into a single context 4. As a result, call sensitivity fails to separate the two nested method calls. However, object sensitivity nicely separates the two nested method calls. As the nested method calls are called under two different objects, object sensitivity nicely separates the two nested method calls with the object. This example shows the counterpart that shows the limitation of object sensitivity but strength of call sensitivity. In this example, the method ID is called under a single receiver object C1, and it is invoked at three call sites 6, 7, and 8. As the three method calls share the same receiver object C1, object sensitivity is unable to separate the three method calls. However, call sensitivity easily separates the three method calls because they are called under different call sites. As call sensitivity and object sensitivity are theoretically incomparable, they had been actively compared to determine which one is better in practice. And the winner was object sensitivity. Since then, object sensitivity became a champion context. Lectures have taught the superiority of object sensitivity. And I was also taught like that. And as we taught like that, researchers focused on improving object sensitivity. There are many researches for object sensitivity. On the other hand, call sensitivity has been consistently ignored. For example, call sensitivity is not discussed or evaluated because call sensitivity is less important than others. And that's me. I also strongly dismissed call sensitivity because I was taught like that. So currently, call sensitivity is known as a bad context. That's the long story before this talk. By the way, there was a technique, context tunneling. Context tunneling is a technique that can improve precision of both call sensitivity and object sensitivity. For example, context tunneling can remove the limitation of call sensitivity. To apply context tunneling, we need a tunneling abstraction that determines where to apply context tunneling. Intuitively, tunneling abstraction is a set of unimportant call sites that should not be used as context elements. If a method is called under a call site that belongs to the tunneling abstraction, the calling method does not use the call site as its context, but inherit the caller method context as its context. That's how context tunneling works. So now, with context tunneling, call site sensitivity separates the nested method calls. It overcomes its limitation. However, object sensitivity still suffers from its limitation. This is a call graph of one object sensitivity with a tunneling abstraction T. For any tunneling abstraction T, it is unable to separate the three method calls with the two contacts. However, as I showed previously, call site sensitivity easily separates the three method calls. So here's the observation. When context tunneling is included, limitation of call site sensitivity is removed, but the limitation of object sensitivity is not removed. From such observation, we claim that if tunneling is included, call site sensitivity is more precise than object sensitivity. To support our claim, we made a function obj to CFA. Obj to CFA is a function that transforms a given object sensitivity with tunneling into a more precise call site sensitivity with tunneling. For example, this is a given state-of-the-art one object sensitivity with tunneling, which is even more precise than conventional two object sensitivity. And this is the transformed call site sensitivity via obj to CFA. In our evaluation, the transformed call site sensitivity is far more precise than the given object sensitivity, and it is even more scalable than the given object sensitivity. Now I will present the detail of obj to CFA. Obj to CFA is a two-step procedure, consists of simulation and simulation-guided learning. Intuitively, simulation finds an expensive but more precise call site sensitivity from the given object sensitivity. As the simulated call site sensitivity is very expensive, the goal of learning is to improve scalability. This is a running example to illustrate simulation. Don't worry, it is a redundant example. In this example, this part is from the example that shows the limitation of call site sensitivity that uses nested method calls. And this part is from the limitation of object sensitivity that the method calls share the same receiver object. And let's suppose the given object sensitivity is conventional one object sensitivity. Conventional one object sensitivity is also can be seen as object sensitivity with tunneling, that the tunneling abstraction is an empty set. The right one shows the call graph of the given object sensitivity. simulation takes the call graph of given object sensitivity and produce a tunneling abstraction for call size sensitivity. And it infers 3 kinds of call size, which are I1, I2, and I3. Intuitively, I1 and I2 present call size that need tunneling to simulate the given object sensitivity. On the other hand, I3 present call size that tunneling should be avoided for improving precision. So now let me introduce the intuition of simulation. Suppose the call graph is produced from call size sensitivity with a tunneling abstraction T prime and infer the T prime. So the call graph is produced from object sensitivity. Let's suppose this is produced from call size sensitivity. In call size sensitivity, if tunneling is applied to a call site, 2 properties inevitably appear at the call site. And we will track the 2 properties to find the T prime. The first property is that if contact tunneling is applied to a call site, caller and calling methods have the same context. It is an obvious one because calling method will inherit the context of caller method if contact tunneling is applied. The second property is that different caller context imply different calling context. It is also an obvious one because caller method context will be calling method context when tunneling is applied. So let's find I1 and I2 from the call graph. In this call graph, I1 corresponds to 3, 5, and 6 because at that call site, caller method and calling method have the same context. And in this call graph, I2 corresponds to a singleton set 3 because at the call set 3, different color context imply different color calling context. So the inferred tunneling abstraction T prime, suppose the inferred tunneling abstraction T prime is 3, 5, and 6. The right one shows the call graph of one call size sensitivity with the tunneling abstraction T prime. And surprisingly, though they use different context and different tunneling abstraction, they are exactly the same analysis, which means call size sensitivity simulated the given object sensitivity. However, as it blindly simulated the given object sensitivity, it loses precision at call site 5 and 6. If we avoid contact tunneling at that call site sensitivity would produce a more precise call graph. That's the necessity of I3. Now let me introduce I3. I3 is that call size that given object sensitivity produced only one context. That context can be replaced by the call site by avoiding contact tunneling. Further, it can improve precision. So now, the computed tunneling abstraction T prime is a singleton set 3. The right one shows the call graph of one call size sensitivity with the tunneling abstraction T prime, and it separates all the method calls. With T prime, call size sensitivity becomes more precise than the given object sensitivity. That's the detail of simulation. However, simulation has a limitation that it is very expensive. To apply simulation, we need to analyze the program with the given object sensitivity to get a call graph, which means the simulated call size sensitivity is unable to be more scalable than the given object sensitivity. So the goal of learning is to remove the overhead of simulation. Given training programs and simulated tunneling abstractions for the training programs, learning aims to find a model that produces similar tunneling abstractions without running the running the given object sensitivity. And the learned model will produce tunneling abstractions for other programs without running object sensitivity. If you're interested in, please consult our paper. It's kind of supervised learning. So now I'll present our evaluation. In our evaluation, we used Doop, a popular point analysis framework for Java. And it is an interesting point that negative results on call size sensitivity have been repeatedly reported on Doop. Before today, call size sensitivity has always lost on Doop. And the research question is very simple. Which one is better when context tunneling is included? And in our evaluation, the winner was, surprisingly, call size sensitivity. These two analysis results show that our call size sensitivity is more precise and scalable than the existing object sensitivities. The right one shows our call size sensitivity is more precise than the existing object sensitivities. This is the given state-of-the-art one object sensitivity with tunneling. And this is the transformed call size sensitivity with tunneling via OBJ to CFA. And as the graph shows, our call size sensitivity is more precise than the existing object sensitivities. And surprisingly, our call size sensitivity is even more precise than conventional 3-object sensitivity. Conventional 3-object sensitivity is known as a very precise context, which is used as precision upper bound of recent researches on object sensitivity. And the right one shows our call size sensitivity is more scalable than the existing object sensitivities. Jeon is known as a troublesome benchmark in terms of scalability. However, our call size sensitivity successfully analyzed the troublesome program Jeon. However, existing object sensitivity failed to analyze the program Jeon within the time budget. And it also shows the necessity of learning. Without our learning technique, the simulated call size sensitivity is unable to analyze Jeon. Now I would like to summarize this talk. Currently, call size sensitivity is known as a bad context. However, if context tunneling is included, call size sensitivity is not a bad context anymore. So, from now on, we need to reconsider call size sensitivity from now on. We did all the things to say this just one sentence. Thank you.
Thanks for the interesting talk. Are there questions from the audience?
Great talk, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, in your performance numbers, I presume that the time to learn is also included in
No. It is offline learning, so we exclude the learning time.
Can you say more about then what is the inputs to the learning process? Are they separate from the benchmarks, or are you learning on the benchmarks that you then evaluate on?
We use small programs in the benchmarks as training programs, and with the learned model we used for producing tunneling abstractions for other programs.
And can you say a little bit more about how long it takes to do the learning?
About 2 days.
2 days.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks. I'm curious how call site sensitivity interacts with multiple dispatch in Java, or if you're familiar, if there's any way to model the dynamic dispatch as statically using your method, or do you think it will require some extra work to do that analysis?
Excuse me, I am not familiar.
So if you have, say, nested contexts that say, well, one says that you should dispatch to this object or to another object based on the runtime type of the object. Do you think it's possible to do this statically, or do you actually need to simulate the program?
Currently, I don't have any idea, so.
Oh, okay. Maybe take it offline. Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi, thank you for the interesting talk. I have a quick question. So it seems to me that the conclusion was drawn from based on the evaluation on the decap benchmark, right?
Yep.
So my question is that does this claim apply to the general or real-world programs in practice?
Our benchmark include real-world program, so.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, were these benchmarks the property that you checked for? You said n false positives. Was this were these like nullity reference properties, or what was the client analysis?
We used Mayfair cast as main client. Mayfair cast. We used to prove this casting is safe. We used number of casting that the analysis proves the safety.
Okay, we'll just follow up offline. Thank you very much. That was a great talk.
More questions? Since we still have 2 minutes, there is one on Irmeet. Okay, there is one from Chengpeng Wang, which says, how do you measure the precision? Any client analysis or just the measure the size of points to set?
We also use a size of point to set as client in our evaluation, but we use in this slide we did not use the points to set.
Okay. From my side, I have one question was that when you do this learning,
Yep.
After learning, basically what you learn is the simulation, or you learn something extra? Like after learning, are you basically simulating the context, the object sensitivity, or you have some other kind of new combination that you will not get from?
We learn new combination, but it's very slight. So it basically simulated object sensitivity.
Simulate the object sensitivity, and learning kind of gives you this simulation in a cheap manner.
Kind of.
So are you actually also using some kind of dynamic information of the analysis, like maybe the points to set?
Currently, we do not the dynamic ones.
What?
Currently, we do not use the dynamic properties.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thanks for the talk. And
Thank you.